What up, my fellow dorks? It is the Turtle Dork here with, shall I say it, the final review for Game of Thrones, the final season, the final episode 6 of season 8. We don't have a title of this one yet. I'm curious to see what the title is. Of course, we are recording this as the credits are rolling. So, the final season, the final episode, it's no more after this. So, we're going to go ahead and break this down. I am here with the Disco Dork and special guest Dork Jennifer.
Hi.
So, let's go ahead and break this down.
She has no name.
No name.
Yes.
A girl has no name. A girl has no dork name. No. Yeah, final episode, man. So my curiosity coming into the opening of this, I wanted to see what the fallout was going to be from how we ended the last episode with Dany basically burning down King's Landing, and we do kind of get to see a little bit of that with her. Well, we don't get to see her first. Really, we get the reactions, and that's what I was curious about from Tyrion. When we open it up, we open up with Tyrion walking down the streets of King's Landing.
When they opened on Tyrion, I was like, "Oh shit! Does that mean he's gonna die in this episode?"
Yeah.
Because you remember last episode it opened on Varys.
That's right. It did. And of course, what ultimately ends up happening when he confronts Dany and she, basically convicts him of treason. And then also that's what happened with Varys. So we didn't know anything with that. But I love how the opening of this episode really started with Tyrion. And even before we get to Dany, him walking through King's Landing and ultimately going down to the Dragon Pit, where he finds his dead brother and sister, Cersei and Jaime. And, I mean, we talk about Tyrion a lot. We talk about Peter Dinklage and his performance. And I would say, again, some great performance acting, reaction acting from him in that moment, seeing his brother and knowing the relationship that he has, specifically with Jaime, but even with Cersei and knowing Cersei as a character, that's still his sister and that's still his family. And we know that Tyrion has always loved his sister. And to see the two of them laying under those bricks and that rubble, and then actually seeing the shot of the two of them, what were your thoughts as far as that, as far as like with Tyrion, just that opening and then ultimately when he sees the reveal of Jaime and Cersei?
Well, would you like to answer
go.
that? Our guest,
Yes,
special
go
guest?
ahead. No.
I don't want to. Oh, okay. You have to be shy.
We can't see you, Steve.
Oh, you can't see me. Sorry. I mean, I kind of expected this episode to pick up with, right after what happened with the previous episode, because it was such a huge character moment for Dany, but then it was just a catastrophic event for everyone at King's Landing in general. That how could you not address that, and address everyone's reaction to that. So, especially like with Tyrion, because as he said in this episode, him having to vocalize that realization that I made a mistake. Varys was right and I was wrong. Mm-hmm. And Jon is wrong. And so we're seeing because there's a moment between once he confronts Dany, he says that, you haven't seen that. No, that was Jon that said there's babies, there's women and children down there burned, and Tyrion is down there and he's seeing those things in that opening. Mm-hmm. And then him going down into the crypt or wherever I was going to say the basement.
I think it's the Dragon Pit.
The Dragon Pit or whatever, and seeing Jaime and Cersei. I felt that I was wondering how he was going to know that Jaime didn't make it out. And I even joked while we were watching it that, what if he sees Jaime's hand sticking out of the rubble? And pretty much that's actually what ended up happening.
Yeah.
Because, his reaction to both Jaime and Cersei being dead there goes back to what I was saying in the previous episode when he told Jaime, when he set Jaime free and said, look, hey, go to King's Landing, get her, and then you all get on the boat, and then you go, and for Tyrion to want Jaime to also take Cersei with him and for her to get out, even in spite of how she's always treated him, had multiple attempts on his life, most recently sent Bronn to kill him. And for Tyrion to still care that much about his sister, and then you see that you see that one final time when he is mourning her death when he comes upon her body. So I mean, I just felt like that just goes a long way to reiterate, how big of a heart Tyrion had, in spite of everyone in his family but Jaime being against him.
And that goes to the whole thing what I was saying before, like last week when he was telling Danny, like, if they ring the bells, like, stand down. Like, he the whole time was trying to prevent bloodshed. And that goes into the confrontation that he has with Danny when he ultimately takes the pen off and throws it down those stairs. Because I knew that was coming. I just, from the way Tyrion was how he reacted to the destruction, he couldn't serve as a hand to Danny anymore, and we knew ultimately what that was going to mean as far as him being taken captive. I mean, of course, he was going to be executed, but Danny took him captive. But I like that moment because the back and forth he has with Danny, where because she says you committed treason by freeing your brother. It's like, I freed my brother. It's like, you slaughtered thousands. It's like, what makes that any different, or what makes that worse? So I don't know. I like that exchange, and I like that he finally stood up to Danny, because when we've seen in previous episodes the fact that Tyrion has always shown fear when he goes to talk to Danny, because of who she was or the threat of what she could do. But this was just kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back. I mean, killing thousands of people is like, all right, at this point, it don't even matter. I'll risk my life, but I can't stand for this. And I like that moment. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I feel like one thing that that also showed whenever Tyrion found his brother and sister was also kind of showed that love lost between those two characters who did love each other so much, and that also was a little bit of emotion because they portrayed that they would die together, so that was a little bit tearful,
It was. It was. The I guess the next moment when he's taken captive, really that conversation between Jon and Tyrion in his little cell, that makeshift cell, when he asked for wine, because it almost looked like a wine cellar. So maybe that's why he was asking for it. He's like, y'all put me in the wine cellar and ain't got no wine? Like, come on, man. But I like that conversation, because really he's trying to convince Jon, and Jon is frustrating, and he's been frustrating for a lot of people throughout this whole season, because of how, he's been kind of at the whim of Dany's every command, saying she's my queen. And you've seen all this that happened in the previous episode, and now you're still in denial and want to say that she is your queen after everything that Tyrion has said. And what I like about this episode is it goes to what people have been saying online as far as like the turn Dany has made. Like, she's burnt evil men throughout the course of this whole series. She's burnt the slavers in Marine. She burnt the guy that was taking charge of the Unsullied at Astapor. Like, she's burnt all these evil men, and people cheer her on, it basically emboldening her with this power. And now she's drunk off this power. But now she's crossed that line. But throughout this whole journey, she's felt like she's been justified for the killings that she's done because they've been evil men.
Yeah.
But now it's like, and that's what he was trying to explain to Jon. And I don't know, he's so frustrating in this scene. And I get people's frustrations with Jon, and I think it shows in that particular scene. So any thoughts on that particular scene with Tyrion and Jon? Jon Snow.
This is probably one of the most important conversations that Tyrion's ever had, because
where it leads to,
I was surprised going into this episode. My only hope was that I don't care what happened. I just didn't want Tyrion to die. Right? He could have been in only like one scene, and as long as he lived, I would have been okay, right? Surprisingly, though, this episode was really Tyrion heavy, but also his importance in this episode was more than I had expected. Again, starting with this particular conversation.
Okay. Yeah, and going to, I guess, when they actually announce Brandon's king.
But firstly, starting here.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because if he doesn't pull this conversation off,
yeah, he's gone.
Then none of this happens.
Yeah, it's a wrap.
Right?
It's a wrap.
So, that thing that Tyrion does, and granted, like these last couple of episodes and maybe previous season, Tyrion has been making some mistakes, which, he's a human being, that's okay. But the thing that always made Tyrion such a great character is his ability to think and outthink people. And, whether sometimes those thoughts and that judgment is clouded by emotion and love. And in this conversation, they say, what is it? Love is the death of duty.
Of duty.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, he has also fell victim to that. But I still think that even with those faults and at times those mistakes, like Tyrion has always been an extremely wise person, so much so that he was able to survive this long, even up to that moment when he was, in this cell. That was because Tyrion has been able to think and talk his way out and convince people, of what he believes is the right thing to do. And in this moment, this is his one of his most important conversations that he has to have. Like, he has to convince Jon to see the truth. Yeah. The truth that Tyrion himself was guilty of being blind to, because he, like Jon, was guilty of loving Daenerys, and that blinded both of them, right? Yeah. And he's trying to say, like, hey, Jon, I woke up, and you need to as well, and you need to do the right thing. And it's a hard ask, but in your heart of hearts that this has to be done. And he asked Jon, like, you've been atop of that dragon. You've had that power. Would you have done the same thing? Yeah. And Jon, even though he might not want to admit it, because like what Tyrion said, I know you don't want to admit it because you want to remain faithful to your queen, but you know the truth. And so really what Tyrion was doing, it wasn't even trying to, he was really just trying to get Jon to realize the truth. Not even trying to, change his way of thinking, but trying to get Jon to acknowledge something that Jon knows and probably has already been thinking.
Exactly. And that's the frustrating thing about it. It's like Jon knows this, but he just doesn't want to take action. But and that's what Tyrion is telling him. Because of his lineage, he was like, look, it has to be you. So, and he's trying to convince him, but he just won't do it. But I don't know. But I'm glad that, as we see in the next scene,
and I think that scene plays out like that with Jon being so in denial. I think it is like a sleight of hand for the audience, so you can think that, oh shit, Tyrion's doomed. Like, Jon just doesn't get it. We're fucked. So that when the next scene happens, it is a surprise, because that's how that scene was effective for me in the throne room, because coming off of that previous scene where Jon just felt like he was just being stubborn and he just wasn't going to see reason. So when that big moment happens, I'm like, oh fuck, wait, what?
Yeah, so it puts you back on your heels when Jon and Dany are kissing, or when they get to that moment, because you think that, okay, he's going to side with Dany, but then ultimately the turn ends up happening. But before we get there, any thoughts on that scene in the cellar between Tyrion and Jon?
Well, the thing that stuck out to me the most is when Jon mentioned that love is the death of duty, but then Tyrion goes back and says sometimes duty is the death of love. Just like setting that tone of what it might be going, because it's his duty to do it. Now he has to do what he has to do. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get to the throne room. well, you guys have seen the episode, Danny's last scene. So Danny dies, which we all predicted, and I felt like Danny had to die because she had to have some type of consequence or repercussions for what she did. I mean, you can't kill thousands of people and rule on the Iron Throne. But I thought this scene was actually played out beautifully. Again, going to the vision from either season 2 or 3, I can't remember which one, but when she goes to the House of the Undying, and when she sees Khal Drogo and she sees the throne room in ashes and snow.
That was season 2, episode 10.
Oh, you remember that? I hope you're right, because they will correct you.
Right.
The internet will correct you. But yeah, so I love how they almost kind of recreate that vision as she's walking into the throne room.
With the same music you said?
Same music, yeah. Yeah. I hope I'm right. If I'm not, y'all will correct me. But it felt like it was. But I don't know. I thought it was a great moment, and when she walks up to the throne, and then we see Jon enter the room, and then the conversation, and Dany is so elated at that moment. She thinks, and then Jon brings her back down. It's like, look, what the fuck did you just do? This isn't what we planned. And then she's talking about, we can build a new world and all this other stuff. And it seems like she's convincing him. And then classic, switcheroo when the camera goes in close and they kiss and you think, oh, damn, Jon. And you get that sound effect of the knife going through the heart. And I thought it was great. And then everything that happens after that with Drogon. Because even when Jon going in there,
they do set that up by his brief encounter with Drogon, and how it's not really standoffish. Drogon acknowledges him and allows him to pass. And just and even how Drogon was kind of camouflaged in the snow, which it looked like boulders and stuff. I thought that was really, really cool. But but after she dies and Drogon comes back in, and we don't know how he's going to respond to the death of his mother. And which we predicted as well, that the throne would probably get burnt down, and Drogon burns that throne down to molten lava. Wow. What is it?
The molten lava. So I thought that was pretty cool because, like I said, and it seemed true to form. If Dany can't have the throne, ain't nobody gonna have it, and that's what Drogon. And I love how Drogon has become a pivotal character in these last couple episodes, or even in this season, because a lot of times the dragons are kind of just looked at as kind of like these cool things that they ride and spit hot fire. And I'm on fire tonight. I'm sorry, but Dylon B. But I like in this moment, Drogon actually, he feels like a fully fleshed out character that has a moment with someone who has lost his mother, and I just like that whole sequence. I thought that sequence was beautifully done and executed. What were your thoughts on that whole throne room scene?
I will say it caught me by surprise. As far as Dany
going out that early?
Right.
Okay.
But as far as her walking in there and them calling back to that vision in season 2, I like that because I wanted some type of. But I had always theorized that would come back in some way, that it will play a part at some point by the end of it, and I like how they did that. And like you said, it looked like they almost shot it almost exactly alike. There were one or two shots that were a little bit different, but it really does harken back to that one particular scene in episode 10 in season 2. And when her conversation with Jon, I also enjoyed too. But then, the big moment, when he does kill her, I will say that I was surprised. Firstly, that it was Jon that killed her, because I thought it was going to be Arya. But even still, that it happened that early in the episode. Yeah. I'm like, all right,
where can we go from here?
Is she going to come? Is she going to come back to life? Is she not really dead? What the hell? But then, as she's laying there and everything else is playing out, the dragon's burning down the throne and stuff like that. I'm thinking, well, shit. Jon's got John's got to explain that shit. Like he's got to go because she has a Dothraki / Unsullied army out there. She's got Grey Worm out there who's militant as fuck right now because he just got a stupid promotion. He's great.
I know, right?
And you just killed the boss, and he's super loyal to her. So I'm like, oh shit! Like John's gonna have to go out there and say, hey, I killed your queen, and the dragon flew off with her. And so I was like, all right, well. That's obviously not going to be that's not going to be a short conversation. That's a big deal, right? And then what happens with the rest of the realms, and so with all the other people, and so this entire episode in that regard caught me by surprise because the way it was structured with taking Dany out so early, but then focusing really on the restructuring of the 7 or 6 kingdoms, right?
Yeah.
But when she died in that moment, because at this point, like she's already imprisoned Tyrion and is about to sentence him to death. So when she died in that moment, like it was really short lived as far as like the surprise of her dying. Because the first thing that popped in my head was, oh shit, does that mean Tyrion lives? He gets pardoned?
I know.
So. Again, because this episode surprisingly was Tyrion's heavy, like he does play a larger role past her, her dying, and we see that because he was a really large factor in Jon actually deciding to do that in that moment. So not only was Tyrion responsible for that and motivating Jon to do that, but he's also responsible for how the 7 or 6 kingdoms are structured, who is going to become king. Like that's Tyrion. Like Tyrion persuaded Jon to do that important thing, and he also inspired that council to restructure how the land is ruled from here on out. So he changed history.
Exactly. And I thought that's the direction the show would go, that they wouldn't have a ruler sitting on the throne. But yeah, I mean, well, before we get to that scene, like your thoughts on the throne room. I mean, that's a pivotal scene.
You were shocked.
Danny's last scene.
Where do you think the dragon took her? What do you think he did with her? Because I thought that was so emotional. The way his response to seeing his mother, and I feared for Jon at that moment. I wasn't sure what was going to happen. Yeah. So, but then seeing the throne being like you said, it was literally melted. It was.
So what did he turn into?
Molten lava. I think Drogon took her back to Dragonstone. Probably.
Think so.
Probably. Yeah. I think he would take her back to Dragonstone. It was
emotional. He's crying over his mom.
Yeah. Oh man.
But were you satisfied with how things played out with Dany up until the very end?
I have to say, yeah. I was sure it was going to be Arya. So when I saw Jon do it, I was okay with it. It was okay.
Yeah, and I thought Jon would have to be the one to end up doing it.
And especially after that conversation with Tyrion. Definitely.
Absolutely. Let's get to who the new king is, Bran, because we cut to
Bran the Broken.
Bran the Broken,
yes.
Which I don't know who gave him that title. If I was Bran, I'd be like, look, man, y'all gotta come up with a new.
Bran don't give a shit about anything.
He really don't.
I don't even think he understands the magnitude of his new job right now.
Yeah. So Tyrion is out there with Grey Worm because he's been in prison. I think they said for like 3 weeks, and you can kind of tell his beard is a little thicker. Good beard though, I like it. Yeah, so we go back out there. I think this is the actual dragon pit where they're at, and so we see all the different houses of all the different kingdoms, and we get all of our old players. We get Brienne, we get Sam, Lord Edmure, their uncle, who always gets
laughing stock.
Really, it's crazy, but it's good to see him.
And you know what, man? That's fucked up. What happened to him in that scene? Because everybody was quiet, nobody was saying nothing. And my man was like, all right, you know what? I'll be the first to get up. I'll be the first to make a statement.
But you have to remember, like, when he got introduced, remember he was trying to shoot the arrow?
I remember, but man, people can change. Apparently not.
No, he did. At least not yet. He needed a little more time.
They got no respect for your boy. That shit was funny. Sandra was like, Uncle, sit down. Damn.
Yeah, we get Yara. I didn't think we would see Yara again, because
Yeah.
she's queen of the Iron Islands now, and Robin Arryn of the Lords of the Vale, who Gendry is there.
Yeah.
So yeah, Robin Arryn looking like a man.
Right? I was like, that's the kid, and it's cool because it's the same actor. Like it's the same.
Oh,
kid.
it is.
Yeah, it's him.
Yeah. So
You couldn't tell.
Kind of, but once they get older, I just figure it's easy to switch them out.
That was it's him. It's him.
So I mean, we get to this whole thing where okay, are they going to have a democracy? They laugh at that, because I guess having the common people vote is like having your dog or your horse vote.
It's a joke. You never know who the fuck can end up in office.
Is that how our political parties look at us as dogs and horses? Interesting.
Well, elephants and donkeys.
Elephants.
Oh,
Okay.
right.
Seriously, didn't get them elephants though. She wanted. She wanted them elephants.
She would have won if she had those elephants.
But then Tyrion talks, and he explains why Bran is the right person to rule over the 6 kingdoms, not the 7, because Sansa declares
She ain't having none of that
Sansa
shit.
declares that the North will never bend the knee again, and they will be an independent state. You want to say? Is that a good term? I guess that would be all right. But I like what Tyrion had to say in that moment. Another awesome speech. Great writing. Don't kill us. Yeah. But what he just talks about as far as like remembering the stories and the history, and Bran being the 3-eyed raven and having that history and having the stories that can carry on, he is the right person to sit as the king of the 6 kingdoms. But I love that speech and the reveal that he is nominating Bran to be the ruler. So what were your thoughts on like that whole sequence?
Again, just Tyrion doing the thing that made me his favorite character, made me my favorite character in this entire series. Using his time wisely. That time he was sitting in that cell, having a lot of time to think, not thinking about himself, not thinking about, oh my God, when are they going to kill me? Maybe he was thinking about that. I don't know. But however much time he spent in that cell that led him to this particular thought process was time well spent, because again, what he said and the truth in that, and having those people believe that truth, changed the course of history for Westeros in the 7 in the 6, well, now 6 kingdoms, right? How they will move forward, and a king will not be the throne will not be inherited through lineage or whatever, but it will be voted upon by a council of leaders from the 6 kingdoms plus Sansa, right? 6 plus 1, right? So, that changes things tremendously, an effect that we won't see because this is the end of the show. But for the people in that land, that's a huge thing. It's a big deal. That's like us getting. That's like us having our particular political process, a democratic process, as far as voting in a president for the first time. Whereas before, it would be like like a dictatorship or a leadership or a king or queen or whatever. Like us getting the power to vote for the first time, right? Yeah. And so that was Tyrion's idea. Yeah. Tyrion gave that gift to the lands, and it's even more fucked up that he's not in like the history book. There's a scene later on
at the end where he's at the small council,
right? And he's not in that book, but his contribution is so great. His contribution to these people and to future generations is so fucking great. Absolutely. And I love that something of this magnitude came from him. From the day one was this drunken little horny, whorish imp that everyone deemed a monster and not equal, didn't take him seriously, and
contribute so much to
the history. Who would go to do so much for so many people, and it would go unrecognized. Like
the unsung heroes. It's the classic unsung hero story, and but I think that's a fitting and a beautiful end.
Well, he proposes that Bran accepts, but then more importantly for me, Bran, because he's still standing trial, Bran immediately makes him hand of the king.
Yeah, and you get excited, but then the way Game of Thrones frames their shots. I know we talked about that watching the show. It was just like, oh shit, Grey Worm, because he was starting to get that look like he was about to do something. Like it's like motherfucker. Man.
You thought he was gonna kill Tyrion?
Yeah, I thought he was gonna be like, he's like, he ain't gonna be nobody's hand. I was like, no. But because they said, we could get a red wedding moment. That could have been it. I was like, oh shit, but he didn't. And actually, I like the end of Grey Worm's story. And so I guess after this moment, before we get there, what did you think of the whole scene with Bran being nominated as basically ruler of the Six Kingdoms?
Well, I think it was fitting that that Tyrion was named Hand of the King, especially the way he, we know he's made mistakes. He's not perfect, but his punishment was to be Hand of the King and to go and redeem himself and try to correct those mistakes as the Hand of the King. So I don't know, I thought it was fitting. I liked it.
Yeah.
And you had remarked prior to us watching this episode, you were like, so what the fuck is going on with Bran, because he hasn't done any
what's he gonna do this whole time?
I know
this huge story about him.
I know.
And where is it leading to? Because he's done nothing, right? I mean,
are you satisfied with it leading to this?
I was happy.
Yeah,
with
me
that.
too.
Yeah.
When that moment happened, I thought about what you were saying, and I was like, okay,
yes,
all right, this is good. I'm satisfied with it.
Yeah. So I guess after that scene, we start to get a little bit of wrap ups. We get another scene between Jon and Tyrion, where he goes to visit him, and we see that he's been in prison, captive for a few weeks as well, and his beard is a little scruffy, not looking, his best. The hair is not tied
people
back.
like a rough dude.
Yeah, I know, but his hair's not tied back like he normally has. He's not clean cut. Not looking. Yeah, he's not looking his best, man. Mm-hmm. So he's got to get back on the men, but. They say, because they're trying to free Jon, and Grey Worm is saying like, look, no, because of what he did, he's our prisoner. But they do agree that he will have to go back to the Night's Watch. So ultimately, that's going to be his fate, which is ultimately where he went in the beginning of the series, and now he's back where he started.
And you remember I said, like, after the episode where Tormund had went back north and took Snow Ghost with him. Remember I said, like, what if in the end Jon ends up going north of the Wall, reuniting with Tormund and Ghost?
And I like, because even when he had that goodbye with Sam Gilly and Tormund when he was leaving to go to King's Landing, Tormund said something. I'm paraphrasing. He was like, you're part of the North, the true North. Yeah, and
I think that's what that last shot is.
Yeah, absolutely. So showing that that's ultimately where Jon belongs.
And even with him looking back at the gates of Castle Black and then kind of looking forward and smiling, like calling back to what Tormund said.
Absolutely.
I love how he asked, there's still a Night's Watch? What do
Yeah.
you need that for?
I know. So we get a couple of different wrap-ups. We get Grey Worm, talking about him for a little bit, where he's on the boat because he sees Jon being escorted, and then there's a final moment between him and his family. But Grey Worm says, all the men here, and then he reveals that they're sailing to the Isle of Noth, where Missandei is from, and where they said that they were going to go. And I thought, as much as we thought because of Grey Worm and his loyalties to Dany that he was going to maybe suffer the same fate, and I've always liked Grey Worm as a character, especially his relationship with Missandei, and ultimately how they felt they didn't have a place in this world, especially in Westeros. So to have that final moment with his character, basically honoring Missandei, was just a beautiful moment for his character, and makes him, he didn't do anything to not make himself redeemable, but I just thought it was a fitting end. So
I agree.
Yeah, I guess nothing else to say about Grey Worm. He's good. He'll be all right. But the moment with Jon when he finally sees Sansa, Bran, and Arya before they go, basically saying his goodbyes to them.
I thought that was a fitting goodbye. Sansa apologizing that they couldn't work out a better deal for him, but Jon not.
He was like, oh no, I'm good with that.
No hard feelings. I'm still alive, so we're good. And Arya, just saying that because John offered like you can always come see me up north of the wall, and Arya saying I'm not staying here, I'm not going north, I'm going out west, I'm going beyond the maps, I'm going to explore and see the rest of the world, and probably murder some more people.
Still got Needle.
And him saying goodbye to Bran, and him apologizing, saying that I'm sorry I wasn't there for you, and Bran saying you were where you were supposed to be. I thought that was a fitting goodbye.
Yeah,
I love the way their stories all went. Arya going to do what she does best. Sansa was born to do that. It seems like.
Her finally getting crowned queen.
Yeah, that was great. That juxtaposition between those three characters, I think when they were intercutting between,
I loved it.
It was absolutely beautiful, and that was an emotional moment for me because I don't know, I was almost kind of feeling like a proud parent because I was watching that and watching them. I was thinking about Ned and Catelyn Stark, and I remarked that in the episode. I was like, they would be proud of their children, especially in this moment, to see Sansa as the Queen of Winterfell, to see what Arya has become. She never wanted to be a lady, and that's what she told Ned in season 1, and to have her go out and explore and possibly kill more people. And then, like, Jon just, becoming a man of the North, like, feeling that's where he belongs. And, I don't know. And you think about it, I mean, it's hard to lose a child, but you think, oh, they only lost 2 kids. Just Rob and Recon. They still got all their kids still survive. So, 2 out of 5 or 6. 6 kids.
No, it's still that family still had it rough because
they
she lost those kids, but the parents also got fucking murdered too.
I know. They did, but I don't know. I just thought it was just a beautiful way they intercut those things together.
Me too.
It was just absolutely phenomenal. And we talked a little bit about the small council scene with Tyrion.
Small council,
yeah. So Tyrion is the new hand.
He got the dream team, man.
He do, and we get to see our man Bronn. I mean, he was a sellsword, and at one point he was contracted to kill the Lannister brothers. It was all business. They're good now. They're good now. So I'm glad to see Bronn
Sir
survive.
Davos is still alive.
Sir Davos, Sam
is finally a maester like he wanted to be.
I like the way Brienne memorialized Jaime there at the end. That was died protecting his queen. That was good.
Yeah, that was a beautiful scene.
And that's a big deal too because prior to that, like Jaime was going to go down in history just being known as the Kingslayer. Right? And she changed the dynamic of his legacy. Personally, she did that, and so I feel like that was a really touching moment. Still fucked up with Jaime doing her dirty.
And
the other episode.
And I still don't think that needed to be a part of the show.
At all.
You could have still had that moment with Brienne completing his story without them having to fuck. Like, I don't understand why you had the. It's Westeros. I mean, that's what they do.
Oh, okay.
But seriously, like they didn't have to bring that because that was wrapped up all within one episode, and it didn't change the dynamic of how Brienne felt about Jaime, even in that last scene when she's writing his story. So I didn't understand why they had to bring that dynamic into the story. It just didn't make sense to me. But anyway, I mean, it doesn't take away my enjoyment of those characters or the dynamics of their relationship overall. So little banter between the Master of Coin and the Master of Ships, Sir Davos and Sir Bronn of the Blackwater. It's just great stuff, man. It's just so we get a little peek into further conversations of how those small council meetings are going to go. Very different from Tywin's.
Tyrion got his hands full.
Yeah, very different from Tywin's small council meetings.
Definitely.
And they're building a new world, and I like that. And then we get the final wrap-ups with Jon. Get to see my man Tormund.
Yay.
Ghost.
Be patient, folks. Be patient. That's all I gotta say. You wanted him to pet Ghost. He got to pet Ghost.
Finally petted Ghost.
You got to pet him. That's all it takes, man. Patience. We talked about this on the podcast. people just have to wait. There's like every day, it's just immediacy on social media. Oh man, y'all did Ghost wrong. Give it time, man. Wait till the show ends. I think it'll be all right. But I guess we already talked about it as far as, is that a fitting end for Jon? I know you think that's a fitting end for Jon.
So it's bittersweet because ultimately I was of the mind that Jon was going to end up dying, right? He was going to sacrifice himself in some way so that Dany can rule or whatever. Because if Dany was going to get the throne with Jon being the rightful heir, Jon couldn't be alive. So if she was going to rule, when I was theorizing that. So had that happened in the show, had Dany gotten the throne and Jon sacrificed himself or end up dying so that she could be on the throne, I would have been okay with that.
Okay.
But in a way, this is sort of the same thing, but except Jon doesn't die. He gets to live, even though he doesn't get to live with his family. So he's sacrificing, not even sacrificing, he's having the ability taken away for him to be with his loved ones, but he's able to be free. In a sense.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it's a good, trade-off. It's a good trade-off.
Yeah. What do you think of Jon's final moments? Is that a fitting end for Jon?
I think after everything that he's fought so hard for, he just wanted nothing but just peace. I think he's gonna have peace of his own now.
Yeah.
And he's with people that he cares about, and of course Ghost. So I was happy.
And he knows that the land is now under a different type of rule leadership. And that's, again, he was supposed to be a shield for the people, a protector of the people, and making sure the people were going to be okay. And now that how things transpired, it seems like people were going to be okay. And so he got what he wanted in a sense.
Absolutely. So that this is bittersweet. Man, Game of Thrones is over. It's done. No more new episodes. I remarked that this is the last time we'll see a new episode for the first time ever. But the show will live on in history. Like I said, my relationship with the show, I came to this show 2 years ago. It took me 6 years to get into the show.
Man, just imagine like if you were with these characters that long.
I know.
You think it's bittersweet now. Like, just imagine if you'd have started from the beginning.
It's probably a good thing.
I know. Because
it's caused had to wait so much longer.
Yeah, it's caused me a lot of anxiety. But it's been fun, and I'm glad that that Darren, thank you, and also our Comic-Con family, Aisha and everybody, for forcing me to watch this show. Because it really is one of the best shows on television. And it is bittersweet to not having any more new episodes to anticipate. But I've enjoyed watching it, rewatching it. And I'm interested to see how this show is looked at 5 or 10 years from now. To see if people still have some of the same issues with the show. But it's been fun doing these reviews. Thank you to all the fans who have watched it and have commented and have kept the conversation going. We appreciate that immensely. It's helped us out a lot. And it's fun. It's been fun. But any last things you want to say as far as Game of Thrones?
Tyrion lives.
That's it?
Yeah, that's it. That's all I care about. I wasn't bullshitting. That's for real.
This man loves Tyrion. Hey, get this man a Tyrion shirt. If you see one, get him one. He needs one for Comic-Con.
He drinks and, he doesn't. No. He knows things.
I eat ice cream and I know things.
Yeah, exactly.
Any last impressions on just Game of Thrones overall?
Oh, it's so bittersweet.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
But I was pleased with the last episode. I have to say I was okay with it. I think it was great.
Yeah. Absolutely. And regardless of how people think of the last episode, the last season, it doesn't have to taint the entire show. No. This show has been great from the beginning, and I think is one of the best shows ever made. And let's hope the prequels or these spin-off shows are just as good. Fingers crossed. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us. We are signing off for Game of Thrones. We're done. It's bittersweet, but I'm actually kind of glad it's over. So I am the turtle dork. This guy is the disco dork. This is Jennifer, the girl who has no dork name. And make sure to follow our other dorks at Mouth Dork, at WB Dash, at Sidewalk Siren. And with that, for the last time, we are out. Tyrion lives. He lives, motherfucker.